An asylum seeker.
All right, you said the front.
You are an asylum seeker. That's a legal term.
I'm amazed that you still pander to the left. Immigration is a major issue in this country. It's because of your policies in this regard that BNP have risen. Can you not accept that the government has an issue about this and has to tackle it square on?
Well, what I accept, sir, is this, that of course this is an issue which is exploited by people on the far right. And given the constituency that I've represented now for 30 years, of course I'd understand that. But what I'm not going to start going around and say, and I hope you're not either, is to say that suddenly, I come from immigrant stock. You may or may not, but I certainly do. I'm third generation Jewish emigres on my mother's side. Well, because you have to have a fair, I'm very happy to have a fair and open debate about this, but as Saida said, and she was agreeing with me, we don't want to pull up the drawbridge. I accept entirely people's concerns about the pace of change, and I've seen that in my own constituency. What we try and do with that is to ensure that there are the resources put in places. I also understand the degree to which various myths about immigrants are perpetrated by people on the far right. If you go around and talk to people...
But Jack, the system...
Because you won't tackle it.
No,
Jack,
They fill the gap, They fill the gap you've left behind.
Jack Straw, let me just put to you a quote from your own Labour Frank Field, a much respected speaker on this issue, who in today's Daily Telegraph said, "A fight back against the BNP will only begin when the party leaders give a full pledge that our population will not breach the 65 million barrier, 70 million being predicted." Do you support that idea?
No, I don't. And Frank
Why not?
I'll tell you why. Because Frank is a good friend of mine, and he's an old friend of mine. But I don't happen to believe that putting a cap on population is possible. Why isn't it possible? Because you then have to put a cap on, for example, the number of children that people have. You also have to decide that you're going to be very, very authoritarian in who can come into this country. What we have done, sir, and we have responded to the concerns very significantly. For example, by tightening border controls, introducing the kind of checks on people going out as well as people coming in.
But no cap is what you're saying.
And we've done that, but what we've also done is to introduce the Australian points-based system for work visas.
But Jack, none of your systems are working.
No, they are.
That gentleman is right.
But I'm very sorry. These systems are working, and what, for example, they're doing in respect of work permits, and I've seen that with my own constituents, is that getting a work permit is now much more difficult, and we can adjust, as Chris was saying, the numbers each year by changing
Jack,
the
until we start having the honest debate.
We're having an honest
debate. You have to start having an honest debate. You're in denial, and that gentleman is right.
All right. All right. Nick Griffin, he says it is working. Do you think it's working?
I don't think it's working. You see with your own eyes what's going on in towns and cities all over Britain. The place is changing at a huge rate, and the ordinary public simply do not want it. And it's time the elite learnt that.
The man in the blue, with the blue tie, on the pale blue tie there, and the blue suit. Yes, sir.
Yes, why are we letting thousands of immigrants into our country when we have rising unemployment?
Why what?
Because why are we letting...
Who said that?
We have rising unemployment in this country.
Yeah, go on then, speak up.
I work with immigrants, refugees. Nick Griffith should probably visit my workplace. I had a student who was a qualified doctor in her country, and she worked proudly as a cleaner in this country. I have other students attempting to learn English so that they can contribute positively in this country. And they're taking on jobs that some English people, according to Mr. Griffith's definition of English, are unwilling to take, some foreigners unwilling to take.
Okay. I'm going to move on now because we've, believe it or not, only got under 10 minutes left, and I didn't want this whole programme to be about the BNP. Shalina Nilavuera, please.
Should the Daily Mail have published the Jan Moyer article on Stephen Gately?
Should the Daily Mail have published the Jan Moyer article on Stephen Gately, the Boys' Own band member who died suddenly, and the Daily Mail, Jan Moyer, published an article which caused a great number of people, I think over 22,000, to complain about it. Bonnie Greer.
One of the qualities of our democracy, and it's the most important, maybe, is that we have freedom of speech and freedom of expression. If we don't have it, we're doomed. I didn't like that article. I thought it was nasty. I thought it was cruel. I thought it was inaccurate. I don't know where this woman was coming from when she wrote it, and I despised it. But she had the right to write it, and the newspaper had the right to print it. That's called democracy. It ain't pretty, but it's the least evil we human beings can make.
Griffin?
Well, like Bonnie, I entirely defend the right of Jan Moore to write what she wrote and the right of the Daily Mail to print it, but I didn't approve of it. I thought that she was quite wrong. I thought she was quite wrong because to say that someone has brought on themselves, which was effectively what she was saying, a sleazy lifestyle, and as a result of that had died. So I thought, frankly, it was in extremely bad taste. She didn't know what was happening. At the time, it was intruding and speculating on all sorts of things which she cannot possibly have had any knowledge of, and what she was essentially doing was giving vent to the most crude type of homophobic prejudice. And I don't think there's any place in a civilized society for that. It's a very similar sort of prejudice to the sort of prejudice that we've previously been talking about against ethnic minorities. Because what we have to remember is that all of us sometimes find ourselves in a minority, all of us. It may be people on the right defending countryside alliance marches against banning fox hunting, for example. It may be people on the left. All of us find ourselves in a minority, and we need to respect each other's rights. And that was an article which did not respect the gay community and really undermined, I think, their civil rights, and was a very, very retrograde step.
One of the things that she wrote was that Gately's death was another blow to the happy ever after myth of civil partnerships. Saeed Avasi, you've written about the promotion of homosexuality undermining family life. Presumably, therefore, you were against the teaching of homosexuality, or you were against the scrapping of Section 28. What's your view about this issue? And are you in favour of civil partnerships?
No, I mean, if I can go back to the question which was asked...
Should it have been published, yes, but we've got a bit beyond that now.
Well, I actually think that newspapers do have the right to publish articles, but I also regularly say that journalists and newspapers have a responsibility sometimes not to. And I think that journalists need to take that responsibility quite seriously. And one of the ways that I was brought up as a young person was that when somebody dies, we say they are hopefully resting in peace, and therefore once they have gone from this world, to take their name in vain and say the things that were said in that article is not acceptable.
Do you support that part of it which talks about the blow to the happy ever after myth of civil partnership?
No, I don't. I think the whole article was very distasteful.
You're in favour of civil partnerships?
I think that people who want to be in a relationship together in the form of a civil partnership absolutely have the right to do that.
OK, fine. Nick Griffin?
I'm against the teaching of homosexuality to primary school children. In fact, I'm against the teaching of any sex to primary school children. I think that's wrong. But I believe that the freedom of the press, as Bonnie said, is an absolute foundation stone of our democratic system. So the Mail can publish if they want, but I personally also believe that it's better to, in the case of someone like Stephen Gately, who's died, to abide by the old maxim, of the dead say nothing unless good, and I think it was wrong.
Okay. Was what she said about the under the carapace of glittering hedonistic celebrity, the ooze of a very different and more dangerous lifestyle has seeped out for all to see? Isn't that rather in line with your view that people find homosexuals creatures repulsive, as you said about homosexuals?
I've said that a lot of people find the sight of two grown men kissing in public really creepy. I understand homosexuals don't understand that, but that's how a lot of us feel. A lot of Christians feel that way, Muslims, all sorts of people. I don't know why, it's just the way it is. And we have come. Again, I took a party... I took a party 10 years ago which said that homosexuality should be outlawed, people should be driven underground and persecuted. The British National Party position now is that what people do in the privacy of their own homes is absolutely up to them, and the state has no right to interfere, but nor do militant homosexuals, that's not all of them, but militant ones, do not have the right to try and preach homosexuality to school children. That is perverse.
Okay, you sir. Yes,
Nick,
great.
do you reckon the head of the Christian sect here in Britain agrees with your views?
There is no particular head of a Christian sect.
No.
No. All right,
sorry, the Queen.
Jack Straw.